But without further ado, let's welcome Thomas Warthoe of Qlife Holding to the stage. Welcome, Thomas.
Thank you.
I dag har vi set et eksempel på, hvordan vores velfærdssamfund faktisk kan blive bedre og bedre, og at vi samtidig kan lave investeringer ud af det at skabe nye virksomheder. Det er vejen frem, at vi kan bruge de offentlige indkøbsordninger meget mere innovativt, bruge dem på en måde, hvor løsningerne bliver skabt af virksomhederne, og hvor det forbedrer vores sundhed, vores velfærdssamfund i den anden ende.
Jamen, EcoHealth, det er en hjemmediagnostiseringsplatform, hvor man kan sidde derhjemme og tage kliniske biomarkører i små kapsler. Det kan man sidde og måle på sig selv, og så kan man sende dem ind i f.eks. sundhedsplatformen eller andre databaser, hvor det kunne være relevant at sende sådan sundhedsdata hen.
Det her partnerskab, hvor man kan kigge lidt bredere ind og netop sørge for at se, hvad skal modellerne være, hvordan skal man evaluere det her medicinsk udstyr, som ikke altid lige falder inden for rammerne, også for eksempel på tværs af sektorerne. Det er super spændende, og det glæder mig rigtig meget til at være en del af.
Jeg tror rigtig meget på mere innovation i vores indkøbspolitikker og i brugen af dem, og derfor er det partnerskab, der startede i dag, det er også starten på noget rigtig stort, som jeg har meget store forventninger til.
So, hello everyone, my name is Thomas Warthoe. I want to start out apologizing because I'm in English and I'm actually Danish, so I should be speaking Danish here. You probably would understand me, but for clarity I speak English. I hope you're okay with that. This little video here, I started out with that because I don't know how much you know about the Danish government, but you actually saw two ministers, the Minister of Health and the Minister of Industry. And then the chair of the regional council was also there. So three very important people, and then me. And we were taking blood on these ministers because the Danish government has initiated a program they call innovative purchasing. And they have actually chosen us, Qlife, to be their showcase. And they have invested several millions into our solution, which is currently being rolled out at Herlev Hospital, one of the big oncology departments there. So I just wanted to start out with that. We are the showcase, and we expect to run this program for the next 24 months. What Qlife is about is this little thing here. We call it Ego Health. Ego because it's about you, and health is because it's about your health. What it actually is, it's a home diagnostic platform where you can sit at home and with a small finger stick in your finger, you get a drop of blood. You enter that drop of blood into a small pipette and into a capsule and then into the machine. And then 5 to 7 minutes later, you have the data on your smartphone. And that data is transferred to your general practitioner, to your institution. If you have a chronic disease and controlled by an institution, the data goes there, or it could go to the hospital. Essentially, it could go anywhere. That is what EcoHealth does. And we are sort of like, I call it a clinical Nespresso system. We don't have cafe latte and espresso. We have cardiac, diabetes, kidney, liver, immune system, vitamins, minerals, all kinds of biomarkers that are important to your health. We are pretty proud of this little thing here because you should think about one of these big auto-analyzers that stands in the central laboratory. What we have done, and we actually worked on this for basically all of my working life, approximately 20 years, to gain the know-how to actually make these devices smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller without compromising the data quality, because that's essential that the data quality that comes out of this little device here is the exact same data quality that comes out of the central lab. Because if it's not, the data cannot be used. So the idea is that the data that is sent in to the general practitioner, to your doctor's office, is used immediately. They don't have to redo it, they just have it, it's there. And we know for a fact that the data is the same because this device here is regulated the exact same way as the big central lab auto-analyzers. We follow the IVD directive same performance criteria, same guidelines. Everything is the same. The only thing which is not the same, of course, is that we don't process thousands of blood samples every day as they do in the big lab. This is a personal device. I usually say one person, one device, one drop of blood, one capsule. It's 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. A family, if you have it in a family, can have several accounts. So it does work for several people in a family. But the idea is to have it for yourself. We are going first north Stockholm, and of course that's a little bit ironic since we are Danish, but I don't know how well you follow that, but in Denmark the stock exchanges are not working very well, especially not the small tech exchanges. So we are going here, and that seems to be working really well. We are working with GW Funds Commission, GW Capital. They are doing an extremely well job for us. We're actually quite actually oversubscribed already. So I'm here to promote that a lot of smaller investors will participate our IPO, which runs in January, February, and listing in March. And you should invest into Qlife because we have unique technology. As I said, we worked on this for quite a long time, and we see this trend of self-testing is something that's gaining more and more acceptance, especially in the chronic area, but also people are starting in sort of the undiagnosed market with Fitbit, Garmin, iWatch, all of these devices that we play into, but we come in sort of as an upgrade with clinical level data that actually means something. And why should you do it now? Well, because we are in validation studies. We expect to have this product approved Q1 next year, and then we will be the first product in the world that can send data out of a home at the same data quality as in the hospital. We have patents on the way, and we have a very well-established organization. Now I want to introduce one concept today that I call personalized diagnostics. You have heard of, probably, people have heard about personalized medicine, but personalized medicine actually does not work without personalized diagnostics. Before you decide personalized medicine, you actually run, you look at a person's genome and you decide which genetic profile fits a specific drug. That's diagnostics. And we come in post the medicine because we put a sort of a cocktail of biomarkers around the drug, and we actually also measures the actual drug. So we measure, for instance, C-reactive protein or hemoglobin, which are in some cases indicators of disease progression, and we measure the actual drug to see if the doses of the drug should be adjusted up or down. One thing we do know is that the doses of even for a personalized medicine, which is tailored to your specific body, are very often, actually always, the doses is wrong. Because even with personalized medicine, it's an average doses. So we measure it and we provide the information to the doctor where they should adjust it. And that gives certain advantages for the patients. We actually see that the patients, once they get engaged in taking these diagnostics biomarkers on their health, they get more motivated and they gain some level of empowerment over their health. And that actually in itself has a positive effect. The professional people, well, they get access to more data, which means they can treat their patients better, and that means better compliance. And society, well, besides all the good things for the patient, they actually can save a lot of money. And that's, I can tell you that one of the reasons why the capital region of Denmark has bought into this system is that they think they can save money on these very expensive drugs, because typically with these drugs, you measure them maybe once a quarter, maybe twice every a year to see how is it going, and then maybe you switch to another drug. We can measure them all the time, and if they don't work, either you can stop because they have no effect, or you can switch to another one. Our system here is divided into 4 components: the device, the capsule, an app, and then the cloud. So all the data is actually sent into a cloud where the actual calculations is going on. So when the analysis runs and it ends, all the raw data from the device is sent into the cloud, and the result is calculated and sent back into your smartphone. That's really smart, because that means you can have the computer power in the back end as opposed to have it in the device. And you can access a lot of devices. Every time you upgrade something, you can access 10,000 of devices instead of having to do it manually. On top of that, you can add in machine learning algorithms, AI. We haven't done that yet, but the potential is definitely there because we are one of the systems that will gather a lot of clinical data. And we all know, especially for machine learning, which is really a lot of, statistics, the more data you have, the better predictions you can do with your algorithms. So, and we will have a lot of data. I took this small video this morning just to show you how it works. You prick yourself in the finger. You enter 15 microliter of blood into the pipette here, as I'm doing. 15 microliter is about a big drop of blood. It goes into the capsule, and you'll see the blood is sucked immediately into the capsule. You throw away the pipette, and then you go to the smartphone. You open the drawer on the machine here. Now it actually checks in the cloud that everything is ready. That's why it takes a few seconds. Then you enter the capsule. And you use the QR scanner on the smartphone to tell the cloud which assay are you going to run. Then you close it, and then it checks again, everything is ready, and then the analysis starts. And it takes, on average, an analysis takes 5 to 7 minutes, and then you get the data on the smartphone. We have chosen to work in 3 areas. One of them is PKU, phenylketonuria, which is a genetic disease for especially children and teenagers. It's most severe in the young years that cannot digest an amino acid called phenylalanine, which means that they cannot eat protein. So they are on lifelong regimens of foods which are without protein, which is not that fantastic. They have to get used to that, but they have a big need for blood monitoring at home. Then we are working in rheumatoid arthritis, ledegigt på dansk, where CRP is an indicator for disease progression, and we also measure a drug, Humira, which is one of the big biological drugs which is used in RA. And then we are working in cancers with these 5 biomarkers here, CRP, hemoglobin, and then also the liver, because when you treat patients with a drug like Sutent, which is a chemo agent, which is extremely toxic, you also want to survey the liver because you don't want to kill the patients. That goes to what I said before, adjusting the doses up and down and surveying the liver. And that means the patients, these very sick kidney cancer patients, can stay at home. You don't have to take them into the hospital as often as you used to. We are currently in these validation studies that I'm talking about, one in Denmark and one in Holland, and we expect that to materialize around Q1 next year. And then we will file for the first CE marks, and that means at that time that we are approved for sales in 27 countries in Europe. So the journey that we are planning is divided into these 4 categories here. Product readiness, that's exactly where we are right now. And then we expect, as soon as we have this CE mark, to start building the business. And that it means especially rolling out within the 3 areas that I talked about and getting the sales and the volumes there. Eventually, we hope to be able, once we have the validation in the professional market, to roll this into the consumer market. So we actually see a rather large opportunity in selling this product to ordinary people that are concerned about their health and maybe want to monitor and gain more data. So eventually we will roll it out. We are actually already, just to test the market interest, talking to electronic megastores such as Elgiganten and Humag and all these electronic shops. And I can tell you they are very interested in health. The market for selling LCD, I think it's called, flat screen televisions is totally saturated, and they are looking for a new thing to sort of focus on, and this could be one of them. Our organization looks like this. We are 13 people, and we are actually sort of a triangle of molecular biology, mechanical engineering, and IT. And all of these 3 things really have to play together in a nice harmony, otherwise nothing works. Which is quite complicated, and we spent some years on that, but it looks really nice now. And what we don't have is a sales organization, and that's That's why we are going IPO, so that we have the funding to be able to invest into that. And especially talking about that, going IPO, where are we going to use the proceeds? Besides the commercial scaling, we are going to invest quite heavily into scaling the production. We actually already have the orders. So our problem at this stage is to be able to deliver the product. It's a relatively heavy product. We are a hardware company, so we have to manufacture hardware, and at the same time we have to manufacture these small capsules, and we obviously have to come into volume. So we need to get into the millions eventually, and that means investing into scaling of production, and eventually reach automation of production, so we can get into the millions. In terms of cost pricing, right now we are selling this little device here for 8,000 Swedish krona, which is actually, for a device which is this complex, not so bad, I think. But the idea is eventually to give the device away and make the money on the consumables. Right now, I can tell you that it also cost us 8,000 to produce it. But of course, in the long run, that's not good. So we expect that for the device, we can get from where we are now to down to around 1/4 of that within a couple of years. And for the capsules, they will be sold at 75 Swedish krona, and we should be able to get that down to around 1/5 of that. And it's on the capsules that we will make the money. I already mentioned a little bit, but the two big markets that we're going to work on in the future is especially the chronic disease management field, and then scaling into where we do see quite a big target group within these three areas, actually up to 3.5 million patients. So that in itself is quite big. But as I said, eventually also scaling into consumer self-testing, which is a tremendous big market if you can grab something of that. We have these three projects, and we sold around 100 devices already, and within the same projects we already have orders up to around 500 devices. So for us, it's not so much a matter of selling right now, it's a matter of producing. The market is characterized within the three segments of being a lot of patients that have these diseases, obviously. There's a lot of rheumatoid patients, and there's a lot of cancer patients. But it's characterized being controlled by relatively few institutions, because everything is so centralized today, specialized. So that makes the selling job a little bit easier. I wanted to end with a couple of slides where talking about the consumer market, because the real vision of this product is actually to give everyone access to data about your health. I think it's interesting that we in 2019, 2020 actually do not have access to the data that means the most to us, the data from our own, within our own body. If you think about it, when you go up to your doctor, you cannot say, I want this and this and this and this. Maybe you have a concern of whatever, your immune system, your liver, your pancreas. You're probably not an expert, but you probably know something about it, and maybe you are interested in seeing data. You cannot do that. It's your doctor, it's the system that decides which data that you will get. And I'm not talking about, of course, we are not doctors, and your doctor should always be involved. But we do think that access to more clinically relevant data is something that we will see more of in the future. And it could be biomarkers like this. We are mostly focused on lifestyle biomarkers, CRP and hemoglobin, your inflammation level, your hemoglobin, your blood percentage, which are totally normal biomarkers. When you go to the GP, it's the first they will take. A LAT, I already mentioned, your liver. 3 months average glucose is the way to diagnose diabetes, as opposed to just glucose, which is going like this. HbA1c tells you exactly where you are with your diabetes, so there's no way you can cheat. And also type 1, have a huge interest in accessing A1C quite often, so they don't have to go to the institution. Lipids, your cholesterols, we all know how important that is. Vitamin, here's vitamin D, it could be any vitamin. Cortisol is an indicator for stress, depression. Humira, just an example of these biological drugs that we can measure and see if they actually are effective on your health. Lactate, interesting for people that are interested in sports health. There are 3, 4, 5, 6 other biomarkers you could put on your sport health. And we actually have run a project in sport where we were working with Ironman people that these guys are really interested in measuring all kinds of data. And it was really amazing for them now to have access to data that actually could say something that meant something about their health, and they could use it to better plan their training programs forward to avoid injury. So just to summarize, this system is an enabler of personalized diagnostics. We feel that it will provide greater life quality for patients, and it will make the job easier for the professional people, because they don't have to deal so much with the people with the institution. They can just access the data and only take them in when it's really necessary. In the cloud, you can manipulate the data. The accuracy and precision is the same as you get from a central lab. And this is a platform which is very versatile. You can put a lot of biomarkers on it. We are working with these guys, GW Kapitalforvaltning, or GW Fondskommission, I believe they're actually called. So if you're interested, feel free to contact them, or feel free to go to our website, Qlife Holding. If you sign up, you will get more information about the IPO, which runs in January, February, and listing in March. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Thomas. And everyone in the room, if you do have a question, raise your hand, and we'll start with the gentleman over there.
I would say that...
Let me repeat the question for the webcast. Have you had any discussions with the physicians, with the doctors? How do they react when the patients have all the data?
They hate it. But we are working with clinicians. So we are working with the doctors in the hospital, and they love it. So there's a difference between doctors. Those in the hospitals and the institutions have a big interest in keeping patients at home, because they are on standard regimens, whereas your GP, your general practitioner, they would like to be in control, so they are more skeptical. So you're absolutely right if you are implying that they are not necessarily on board. We are not focused very much on the GP office. We are focused on the chronic disease management. I think eventually they will be interested, but I think it will take a little bit of time.
What is it that makes your technology unique?
It's the optics. Okay, so the optics that we have measures absorbance, fluorescence, immunotopolometry, and chemiluminescence. And that's extremely complex, but that's why the platform is so versatile. Other devices only measure one, and that means that you typically have a device, even though they are bigger than this, but they are relatively small in your GP office. They measure 1 or 2 biomarkers, which is, this is how it is today. If you want to measure CRP, you probably use an Orion machine. If you want to measure hemoglobin, you use HemoQ, the Swedish company. So there's a machine for every biomarker. So we are a small machine for all biomarkers, and that's because of the optics.
If you can measure all these biomarkers, why are you making a consumer device? I mean, the blood testing industry has, I think, $70 billion a year or something like that.
Right, that's true. I don't have a really good answer for that. I mean, I think we just have the idea that we want to roll this out eventually into consumer diagnostics. So this is the vision. Even though we come from clinical diagnostics, we always thought it would be fun to go all the way to normal people, because we think people should have access to their own data. But you're right, and I think it's very likely that we will never reach it, because the market in chronic diseases is huge, and there's a big need already there. So you are right to say that why are you going there? Well, maybe we will never be there, but it is our vision.
What are the what are the big hurdles in getting these out into the hospitals? Who do you need to convince, and why? What are their biggest fears about a device like this?
Is absolutely the precision and accuracy of the device. So this is all about having the quality and safety. You don't want to misdiagnose people, because people take drugs, they adjust their drug based upon data that we provide. So if the data is unprecise, you are essentially in serious trouble. So it has to be very, very precise. It has to be the same as in the central lab. So that goes to the regulatory approval, of course. That this product needs to have regulatory approval, and that's the biggest risk. But having said that, we already is discussing with the authorities, and we will get the regulatory approval. We know already for the professional market, which means the performance data, and then you go into creating a usability package where you show that normal people can figure it out, and then you file for home use. So we are pretty well on track.
What about the risk that people cheat their tests or does it wrong, or in some way contaminates the data before it gets into the machine, so to speak?
We have to show that that's not possible. That's our responsibility. People are not. If people can mess it up, then it's not going to get approval. So it's a good question because it's our responsibility. So that's why nobody has done it so far, because it's difficult to make something which is this precise, at the same time has to be this easy. That's difficult, and that's what we have done. But that is the danger with that. If people cannot figure it out, it's our fault.
Yeah. And can you give a sense of the savings, both in terms of money for the government in having a device like this, and also if there are any clinical benefits that you can prove, so to speak?
Right. I can give specific numbers that, for instance, in PKU fields, typically you calculate with 35 euros for one test. That's the number which covers the lab time and the lab technician time and all of that, the reagents. And we sell the product for 10 euros. So there's a margin of 25 euros, and at the same time people can sit at home. So in that sense, it's a good business for and typically this is the public which is paying, right? So there's a lot of savings, and at the same time you keep people at home.
But you do more tests as well, right?
Not necessarily.
No.
That's something in the regulated market. That means the market where you have a physician to tell you what to do. They should tell you how often you should test. And they maybe test once a week or once a month. It's up to them. If you do it more on your own, then you pay, but not the public. So that depends. If you are in the unregulated market, what the consumer diagnostic I was talking about, then it's up to you, and you have to pay for everything.
Yeah. And are there any clinical benefits
that
we have seen so far, as you say?
Yes, I mean the clinical benefit is that you get more data, so you can react much faster, which means essentially that you can have better treatment plans of people, and you can react faster to put them on another drug, for instance, if it's not working. So the benefit is that you get better treatments.
It is something you have seen already, or is this sort of a theoretical benefit so far?
It is something that we are running in validation studies, right? Yeah. So we have not seen it, but that's the hypothesis. That's true, that this will, but I think all doctors will agree that the more data you have and the faster you can react, most likely you will get better outcomes.
Yeah. Very interesting. Okay, time has run up, so thank you, Thomas, again. Sure. Give him a round of applause, I think.